Namaste, hello, and welcome to India Global Week 2020, Be the Revival, India and a Better World. I'm your host, Priyanka Deo, reporting from New Delhi. This is truly a global conference. In fact, this just in, I'm super excited because we have registered attendees from 52 different countries here this morning with us. So follow us on India in Corp, the conference. And with that being said, let's begin. First of all, Singapore is one of the largest sources of foreign direct investment. In fact, under the PM Modi government, in fiscal year 2018 to 19, Singapore was the largest source of FDI to India. This equated to about 16 billion US dollars. Now, this is not just good for India's economy, but a bold statement of the strengthening relations between the two countries. With that being said, let's dive right into today's session because we don't have a lot of time and we have a fabulous panel. The session is titled Invest in India. And if you're taking screenshots, pictures, or posting on social media, be sure to use our hashtag #BeTheRevival. Let me introduce our speakers and let the session begin. First of all, we have Mr. Deepak Bagla, who is currently the Managing Director and CEO of Invest India, the National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency promoted by the Government of India. Invest India is also the agency for the Government of India's Startup Initiative. Next, we have Mr. Neeraj Seth, who is the Managing Director of Blackrock. He's heading the Asian Credit and has been in his current role since 2009. He's a portfolio manager for the Asian Tiger Bond Fund and the Asia Pacific Private Credit Fund as well. We have Mr. Satpal Khattar, currently the Chairman and Director of Khattar Holdings Private Limited. The Government of India has honored Mr. Khattar in 2011 with the fourth highest civilian award, the Padma Shri, making him the first Singaporean to receive this award. And last but not least, we have Mr. Manohar Khiatani, Senior Executive Director of Capitaland Group. Now, he's also a member of the Capitaland Executive Committee, and he's also a special advisor to the Chairman of Singapore Economic Development Board. That being said, I'd like to welcome my panel onto our first discussion, Invest in India. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
My first question goes to Mr. Deepak Bagla. I would like to ask you, can you give us, the session is titled Invest in India. So can you give us a lay of the land as to how Singapore for a while now has been one of India's top foreign direct investors? Can you give us a lay of the land as to how that's come about and what it entails?
Thank you, Priyanka. Let me just start with a statistic for you. We close our financial year in March. So March 2020, FDI which India got was 74 billion. It's the highest ever FDI we've ever got in our history. Let me give you another statistic to that. This is when global FDI was declining by 7%, India's FDI went up by 18%. And I'm just talking of the past 12 months when this happened. And let me put further into perspective. Total FDI I've got from 2000 to 2020 this year is approximately about 730 odd billion. 50% of that has come in the past 60 months. And more interesting, 92% of that has come in what we officially call as the open route, which meant that it did not require any specific government approvals, any special government approvals. And more interestingly on that, close to half of this is greenfield investment, a little over 40%. So we are now one of the top greenfield destinations on the planet, which typically means that the investor is now comfortable taking a long-term call on India. Singapore has always been a very special relationship, and it will continue to be. It's also a very important relationship, both in trade and commerce. But what I am noticing is that a large number of countries and corporates are probably also routing their investments via Singapore because of some obviously financial reasons, which they may be getting advantages for. But after having said that, I must say that if I look at my pie chart today, I would have at least about 10 countries accounting for my top 60%, which at one point of time when I started this job just 5 years ago would not have been more than 5. So the countries are broad-basing, geographically we are broad-basing, sectorally we are broad-basing. I've done 250,000 business requests from 109 countries across 47 sectors. So that is just to put it in perspective for you, and the relationship with Singapore will continue to remain special. Thank you.
Great. And just to add on to that, the next question goes to Mr. Neeraj Seth. Now, how attractive, for those that may not be too familiar on the subject, but how attractive of an investment destination is India for Singapore during COVID?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Priyanka. I think this is an important question. I would say, given where we are in this world and the impact of COVID, which is actually leading to a lot of major changes in terms of the changes in supply chain, the geopolitical landscape, and the slower growth potential in the world, India remains a very, very attractive destination from an investment perspective. But at the same time, I would like to highlight that there would be certain specific areas of focus, ingredients where we would need to see more happening going forward in order to attract more capital more so from a foreign portfolio investor perspective. If you think of the growth story of India, it's built on the combination of political stability, the macroeconomic stability, and the demographics, which has a huge potential growth for not just years, but decades to come in a world which is actually relatively short on growth today. Hence, I think there's certainly a lot of attractive opportunities there. But as an investor, we would like to see more of. First, very important thing is the ability to jumpstart the economy post-COVID, given how much of a slowdown that we have seen over the course of last 4 months, how that works, how the government actually manages through the potentially higher fiscal deficit with a path towards consolidation in medium term. Further simplification as much as possible of the regulatory and the tax framework from an investor perspective. And finally, last but not the least, more structural reforms across land, labor, and financial markets. That's something that the government and most specifically Prime Minister Modi has talked about. And we would love to see more of that. But if we can get some of these things in place, I would argue that in large economies, India is actually quite well placed to attract more capital in future.
Thank you for that. So with that being said, I'd like to point the next question to Mr. Khiatani. What are key things that investors are looking for now in India? Is it something like, America invests a lot in India as well, primarily for entrepreneurship. What are key things that investors are looking for from a Singaporean perspective to invest in India specifically?
Yeah, thanks, Priyanka. I think India has many advantages. Obviously, the biggest one, of course, is the market. The market is very exciting. It has always been an exciting market, but now even more so with the rapid growth of the middle class, which I think is the biggest anywhere in the world. So that is clearly a big pull. The demographic dividend of India is incredible. And in the more recent past, Make in India, Digital India, Startup India, people recognize that they are more than just buzzwords. There's a lot of substance and content behind it. So I think these are all the things that are attracting people to India. I must say the relative stability of the currency has also given more confidence. There was a period where, between 07 and 2013, where the Indian rupee depreciated very strongly, and that caused a lot of uncertainty. But more recently, the Indian rupee has remained relatively stable, so that that gives a lot of confidence. Because what do investors look for? Investors look for consistency of policy, pro-business mindset, which due credit also to to organizations such as Deepak's, which have given more confidence to the international investment community. So I think these are all the positives, and more importantly, the buzzwords have always been there, but now there's substance behind the buzzword. Infrastructure investments are taking place much faster than before. Doesn't mean we cannot do better. I'm sure India can do even better, but definitely it's much better than where we came from. Now, if I look at my own company as an example, Capitaland, we invest in IT parks, logistics, and also data centers. So we believe strongly that India has the best combination for the IT and IT-enabled services. It has still got the best combination of quality of manpower, quantity of manpower, and the cost of manpower. I don't think there's any other place in the world that can compete with India for that right now. I do believe that more can be done in the area of manufacturing, but we have started investing in logistics in quite a big way now. And if we could, make certain things on land acquisition and requirements regarding zoning, building approvals better, I think India will become even more attractive than what it is now. Thanks, Priyanka.
Thank you. So with that being said, you mentioned one very interesting thing in that answer, which is the demographic dividend. And this is something that I was hoping to cover in this session, that India has an incredible demographic right now. It's unique to the rest of the world. I believe 65%, over 65% are under the age of 35. And I think 60% or close to 60%, somewhere around there approximately, is under the age of 30. So the next question goes to Mr. Khattar, who I believe is audio only. The next question goes to you, Mr. Khattar. Is entrepreneurship going to be the thing that drives India forward? Are youth going to take it and make it attractive for Singapore to invest in? Or is it something else?
Well, entrepreneurship is in the blood of almost all Indians. They succeed very well and stupendously in every country outside India. Only within India, there is a little bit of slowness. But with China becoming now the whipping boy of the world in terms of the future, I think one of the larger beneficiaries will be India, because everybody speaks English and the laws are familiar to foreigners and how it can be done, and it's easy to understand. Of course, there are lots of things that could be improved in India: the legal system, the labor market, bureaucracy, etc. There's a lot of room for improvement. For instance, for an investor like me, I can, buy any amount of IBM shares tomorrow and sell 3 days after that. Whereas if I'm going to do something in India, by the time I finish filling in the forms, the market has either run away or come down. So there are a lot of things that ought to happen in India, and it's too slow in happening. And I believe everybody can blame everybody else, but I think there is a need for the bureaucracy needs to put all these problems into space and deal with them quickly. In spite of that, we've been investing in India for over 20 years and are very happy with what we have invested. But there'll be lots of more people like us if India could streamline its systems.
So now my next question goes to Mr. Bagla. Pretty loaded question. Now, Mr. Khattar just said that legal system needs to be changed. These are that need to be changed in India. And it's very easy to say, as he was saying, it's very easy to blame it on a slow system. And if the system was working well, more investors would come in. Is there a way? What do you see? Do you see it improving in the next few years? What does India need to do to improve? Because it's very easy to say that yes, the legal system needs to be changed, but that's a big change to make, and it could take a long time.
So Priyanka, let's not talk in years, let's talk in months now. That's how the government in India is working today. First, Manohar, thank you very much for the kind comments on Invest India. The team really works hard, and we are at it. And that means also go back to Neeraj's point. Priyanka, do I have 2 minutes on this one, or do you want me to just make it down to 10 seconds?
Take your time. Everyone wants to hear you. Stage is yours.
Thanks. So first, let me start with Neeraj, and he mentioned about the recovery and the reforms which are happening. Let me just say, we are on day 108 of the most unprecedented lockdown ever in human history, anywhere on the planet, anywhere. And, what I found in COVID and what is happening in the current situation, though I still don't know we are at the beginning, middle, or the end. That's what nowhere in the world do we know that. But essentially, as I look at it, one, the underlying element of de-risking, which was always there in the business, has now got amplified and is now hitting people on the face. So that be supply chains, that means their operations or whatever. The second very interesting thing which came out, and that is where the strength of India will be, and to my mind, that is going to propel the growth of India going forward, are my 65 million MSMEs. The amazing level of entrepreneurship which you spoke about, but more important than that, is the nimbleness and their ability to pivot their business models. 30th March, I did not have a single PPE in India. Today, I have a run rate of 750,000 PPEs. And you know how, if you go onto my website, investindia.gov.in, you'll have a business immunity platform there. Go on it day by day, how COVID happened, how we had created teams which were in touch with the MSMEs, pivoting their business models, changing them around, and getting them fast-tracked to create ventilators, masks, PPEs, anything. That's the first strength of the Indian entrepreneur and MSME. The second strength is their ability to utilize capital in the best possible manner. Every rupee invested with the MSME creates the highest velocity of money where this is concerned. And let me take you back. And since you were talking about recovery, let me just give you a quick statistic on that. And I'll just give you the statistics of June. MSME collections have been at 65% in June. And please do not forget, I'm in a state of moratorium, yet 65%. My microfinance collections in India started June with 60%, ended up with 80%. This is the resilience and the strength of the system. Now, let me go back very quickly to what else has happened during these past 180 days. 108 days. Most unprecedented reforms in the government. In the past 45 days, especially, what you've seen is you've had state governments coming up with landmark, unprecedented labor reforms. You've had the government of India, when we were all talking about the delays which happened in getting approvals to start business. A single committee has been set up, an empowered group of secretaries under the cabinet secretary. All approvals go into that single one window, come out fast. In fact, I have state governments, and number of them have been coming up with their own reforms. We have state governments which today have a single window which is rated amongst the best in the world. I have state governments which give you all approvals within a given period of time, let's say 30 days. And you know what's unprecedented? For every day's delay after 30 days, that specific government official's personal account is debited and penalized. Nowhere else in the world is this happening. India is changing at an extremely rapid pace. I told you I've done 250,000 business requests across 47 sectors, 109 countries. The number of business requests which have gone up in the past 65 days has gone up tremendously to a point where I have to do a 3x of my team in the next 6 months. And these requests are just tell us now where is the land and we want to start. In fact, what you will see now in the next few weeks, on the web portal itself, you will be able to see where is that land parcel available. You'll be able to click onto it, go and see it. We're working towards completely all online and happening at a fast pace. I know Mr. Khattar mentioned that things are happening too slow. It's good to hear from you, Mr. Khattar, because a lot of our Indian businessmen often tell us that the government is moving too fast. But, we are in a rush. And I remember when I was in Davos early this year, and I'm going to close on this one, we had a roundtable of 18 global investors and some of the top global private equity funds. And one of the ones which has a huge investment in India, planning to do a 2x. And the minister was with me and asked him, so what is it which you like in India? He said, the story of India is that every tomorrow is better than today. And that is where we are with India. So everything is changing. We know the opportunity. We've made it easier for you to access that opportunity. And now, from a government perspective, we're going to make your trip and your journey as easy as possible going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bagla, which leads me right into my next question. And this goes to Mr. Neeraj Seth. Now, Mr. Bagla elaborated a little bit on ease of doing business. Now, India has jumped ranks quite significantly since 2018. And I know 2018 stats moved. I graduated from Harvard, turned down all my job offers, and moved all the way to India. Because as Mr. Bagla said, it's a very exciting time to be here. Now, with that being said, India has jumped ranks from approximately, I think we were in the 140s in terms of ease of doing business. And as of 2019, I believe, or end of 2018, 2019, in around there, we were at 70. And PM Modi aimed to be within the top 50 in the next few months. Now, has that made a difference? Has ease of doing business really made a difference in terms of a Singaporean perspective that we do see more entrepreneurship. We do see more solid entrepreneurship, not just somebody wanting to start a company and then doing nothing about it, just registering it and, it's just there for namesake. Have you seen this change, and has it impacted investment in India from Singapore?
The short answer is absolutely yes. I do think we are seeing meaningful shift and change. In fact, just reflecting on some of the comments we heard in terms of the single approval windows and the smoother approval profiles, I think it is happening. I would say, taking a step back, one thing important worth highlighting is that it's not just about what the starting point was and where we are today. It's also about what our competitors are, where they are, and where do we rank on a relative basis. When you think about a lot of the capital flows in the world, they are on a relative basis looking for opportunities, whether it's FDI or the portfolio investments. And I think there's still more to be done. But I would say, based on our experience looking at the businesses, looking at entrepreneurship, looking at new investments that are going in, there's certainly three observations I would say which are relevant. We certainly have seen more entrepreneurship on ground, onshore, by onshore, call it graduates or experienced people in India. We also have seen returning residents, and this is a very important point in my mind in terms of what we call 20 or 30 years back, the brain drain that was happening relentlessly out of India. And I think that's just started to reverse. It's very early days. And one would hope that accelerates, because that reverse brain drain from the 1780s and 90s of the brain drain we saw brings a lot of experience and best practices from the global standpoint, which makes India a lot more credible and an investment opportunity wise. Obviously, it can bring a lot more of the domestic and global capital alongside. And the last is obviously the foreign direct investments, which are also a reflection of the ease of doing business. We have seen the FDI jumping more than twofold in the last 5 years. And I would argue that that number should in fact go up again twofold in the next 5 years, because the reality is, if you think about the global current situation through a combination of the geopolitical tension between US, China, and the reestablishment of supply chains, and the focus on the resilience of supply chains driven by COVID, there is a lot of re-establishment up for grabs. And I think India is well placed if we actually position it right in terms of infrastructure, policies, and ease of doing business. So we have seen improvement, but I would say we are somewhere in the midway of that journey, and the destination is still in front of us.